Today is July 31st, 2023. My name is Tanya Finchum. I'm with Oklahoma State University with the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program. Today I am in the Veterinary Academic Center on campus with Dr. Lara Sypniewski, a faculty member with the OSU College of Veterinary Medicine since 2009, specializing in small animal primary care.
Yes, ma'am.
This interview will be part of the Stories from Oklahoma State University collection and will focus on Pete's Pet Posse, or P3 for short. By way of context, Pete's Pet Posse, OSU's pet therapy program, was formally established in 2013 as part of the university's commitment to being America's healthiest campus and is celebrating its 10th anniversary this year. P3 supports the emotional wellness of students, staff, and faculty and has grown beyond the OSU Stillwater campus. And as I understand it, you have been the veterinarian for the P3 from the very beginning.
Yes, ma'am.
And have seen the program grow by leaps and bounds. With that said, thank you for meeting with me today.
You're welcome.
And before we get to P3, let's learn a little bit about you, starting wherever you like.
Well, I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, so I'm a Michigander, not an Oklahoman, and went to veterinary school at Purdue, graduated in 1998. I went to Georgia and did a small animal rotating medicine and surgery internship, and then stayed in Georgia for a few years, practicing there, went back to Michigan for a few years to be closer to my family, and then took a job opportunity in Arizona. So that was just kind of a little detour in my life. We call it that. It's probably the best way to describe it. A little detour to Arizona. Found that wasn't my cup of tea. And my parents, my mom has been a nursing instructor for my whole life. And my dad at that time had retired from his position and was teaching at a college, teaching business law. And they both encouraged me. They said, well, you seem like you're really good at educating your clientele, so we really think that you should be a teacher. And I kind of giggled about that, but I said, sure. Oklahoma State had an opening, so I put my name in the hat. I was at that time already board certified in small animal general practice and primary care. So I applied and took the job here, and by way of Michigan, Georgia, Arizona to Oklahoma. So
almost
now,
coast to coast.
Yeah, almost coast to coast. And I have to say, although I love Michigan and it's so beautiful, I am an Oklahoman by heart. I love it here. I'm married to Oklahoma, so my husband's an Oklahoman. We have a son and a granddaughter, and so even though my family is in Michigan, my heart is in Oklahoma, and I just adore it here. So would never leave.
That's really good for OSU. So how did you get interested in small animal care?
Well, and when I was a veterinary student, I think that there are a lot of people my age during my generation that just really wanted to be an equine veterinarian. I really loved horses. I was just a big fan, but I found that when I was in veterinary school was probably the best time to figure it out. It just wasn't for me. I did not grow up on a farm. I did not spend a lot of time around horses. And so I think that my comfort level wasn't as high. I wasn't as proficient in my horseman skills as someone who's maybe had more time working with them in a veterinary manner. So during my senior year of veterinary school, my fourth year, clinical year, I was a equine tracking, and then I just said to my mentor, I don't think this is really what I had envisioned for my life. And so that's when I made the career switch to go into small animal medicine and surgery, because I really enjoyed those rotations that I was on. So that's the beautiful part about veterinary medicine, is that you don't have to get stuck in one area for the rest of your life. You can always make a change. So I did decide to do an internship after veterinary school, which I think was very beneficial for me because I had spent half of my clinical year doing equine. So I felt that I needed a little bit more of a robust experience. And I did my internship at Georgia Veterinary Specialists after I graduated from Purdue, and it was a great learning experience. I would never do it again, but I would definitely not ever want to give up the experience that I got in that 1 year is basically, I would say, about 3 years of private practice experience kind of concentrated into one very difficult year. But I enjoyed it, and I am so happy that that my trajectory changed. It really has been the best thing for me personally and professionally, and I've just been tickled with my career choice.
Well, back in high school, how did you decide on veterinary school to begin with?
Oh, I've wanted to be a veterinarian since I came out of my mom's womb. It has been my feet hit the ground and I was going to be a veterinarian. That's just, there has not been any other career I've ever wanted. Ever since I was a little kid. Never, always was going to be a vet. And my parents tried to talk me into being as my dad would say, be a real doctor. Because he's like, you should be a real doctor and, treat humans. And I just said, well, I don't really like to touch people. So, I like to touch animals. But yeah, he gave me a really hard time about it because, when you look at the amount of student loans and time and energy, he was like, just think of all the people you could have helped. And I became a veterinarian. I love people, but they're great. But I really became a veterinarian because I love to help people through their animals. That is my calling. That's my vocation. I really think animals are awesome members of the family, and I know that if I can help somebody through their pet, then that is what God has called me to do. And so I always tease my dad about all God's creatures. So I just chose the four-legged ones. The winged ones can go with another person, but I'm a big fan of the four-legged. Now, occasionally I see a three-legged animal, but those are usually, extenuating circumstances. We take the tripods and we don't typically hold it against them. But yes, I love my fur and my little furry friends. But I really do. I feel that my vocation has been to help people through their pets, and I have loved every minute of it.
Did you have very many growing up around the house?
No, ma'am. No. My dad is not an animal lover. Also, probably why he recommended I become a real quote unquote doctor. We got a cat when I was in 5th grade. We got 2 cats. We got 2 cats when I was in 5th grade, and that was a big step for my dad. We did not get a dog because I had begged for one for my whole life. We did not get a dog until I was 15. So then, I had her for 2 years, and then I went away to college. She stayed with my parents and my sister and brother, but really, they kind of sucked. I was like, you waited till I go to college, and then you finally get a dog. But my parents, I think, were really happy that they don't have a lot of pets. My mom loves them, but my dad is just not. That's just not who he is. So he was happy to see no pets in the household.
So you had a brother and a sister?
You have an older brother and a younger sister.
So you're in the middle.
I am the middle child. Probably explains a lot.
I am too. So.
It's important. Middle children, we're always trying to make a splash, I suppose.
And Detroit, did you live in the city?
I grew up in a little part of Detroit called Garden City, and it was my dad and mom had went to Marquette, And that's where they met in Milwaukee. And then they had my brother and me. And they moved to Detroit when my dad first started out at Ford Motor Company. So we lived in this little teeny tiny track home in Garden City. And it was a pretty rough neighborhood. But then after my dad, he started doing pretty well at Ford, then we were able to, when I was in my teenage years, then move out into the burbs. And then we eventually moved to Indiana, so in South Bend, yeah. So they moved a little bit, but my family is just a Michigan. They don't go very far. It's like they're a stone's throw away from Michigan at all times.
Well, they would not appreciate the 100-degree weather we're having here, would they?
No, I get teased a lot. That, and we also don't have a very big body of fresh water close by. So, with Michigan, it's all about the water. No matter where you go, you're only an hour or two from a Great Lake. So they take big pride in their water sources.
So where did you graduate from high school? In Detroit?
I graduated in South Bend. I went to St. Joseph's Catholic School in South Bend, Indiana.
And graduated when?
In 1991.
And then Purdue and...
Then went right to Purdue, and I did my undergrad and my graduate work there, and I graduated in 98.
Okay. And then worked around a little bit and then ended up here in Omaha.
Yeah.
What was your first impression of OSU and Stillwater?
It was really flat. There were very few trees. And when I first came, it was during Halloween. So I thought all the orange was like festive coloring for everything. And then that was my interview was in October. And then when I accepted the job, my son and I came out in November to buy a house. And I realized that orange was just here all the time. So as a Purdue graduate, I bleed black and gold. So it was really hard for me to fall in love with orange. But I do love it. My husband's an OSU graduate, so he wears orange pretty much all the time. So, it just grows on you after a while. But I thought it was funny because when I first came, I was like, wow, they really love Halloween around here. And then I realized it's not a love of Halloween. It's just a love of orange.
You probably missed homecoming that first year. Then.
I did,
barely.
Yes, homecoming was quite the trip. I was pretty impressed. So, I've never really lived in a college town, so learning how college towns do things, because I've always lived in really pretty big cities, and so this has been my first small city experience, and it's so different. We grew up in Detroit, and then Atlanta, now college in West Lafayette, but still West Lafayette and Lafayette are pretty big cities. And then Tucson, Arizona, I'm used to the big cities. And then we come here and realize like life is a little bit more low key and there's hardly any traffic. I can go to the big city if I want to. I know people when I go to the store. I like that. I like having connections and having that sense of community and family. So yeah, I even though Stillwater was flatter than I had expected, I don't know, it's just grown on me.
You like the job from the get-go?
I like the job, yeah. The job and the sunsets. You can't beat an Oklahoma sunset. I will have to say that is probably the best part of our day here in Oklahoma is the sunset. That and it drops the temperature about 20 to 30 degrees. But yeah, and the job, I really have enjoyed changing my career from being a practicing veterinarian and being kind of on the front line of my patient care to taking a role more on the backside and preparing veterinarians to do just that, to produce a very well-rounded and confident new graduate veterinarian. So I think that's been a cool opportunity for me.
I was reading that some of your research was in nutrition.
I've dabbled in a lot of things. So there's a little bit of nutrition in there. The thing is with our faculty, it's pretty small. So we find a lot of creative collaborations. So the best part about being a primary care practitioner is that I have a great variety of interests. I don't just do one thing. So I get a lot of opportunities. People say, hey, what about this? And I'm like, sure, I'll help you that. Why not? I mean, what's the worst thing that can happen is I learn something new. So yeah, I've done a lot of research in pain management, which is a big love of mine. I've done research in nutrition, and I've done some collaborations, even with the equine practitioners on pain management, and it's been really fun. I've had a lot of opportunities.
Acupuncture, right?
Yes, I love acupuncture. I think it's amazing.
For animals, I never had thought about that till I watched your TED Talk.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
It makes sense.
It does make sense, and my students are amazed. They have that same moment that I had the first time I saw acupuncture on an animal and thought, there's no way that this could work. And then I saw it work firsthand, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. And when my students get to experience it, they have the same response. Like, holy cow, that worked. And I have some amazing stories. Now I use acupuncture mainly for chronic pain. That's been because I'm kind of the veterinarian that's with them from the whelping box to the end of life. So I love them as puppies, and then I try to carry them through their whole life healthily, and then when they're in their twilight years, help them enjoy those twilight years. So we use it a lot for chronic pain and mobility issues, and I have been just so impressed, one, with the commitment of my pet owners, because they have to be very committed. They will go above and beyond my expectations of them. But they're also very realistic, and we do it together. We're a team, so if we're end of life care with a patient, I'm a member of the team, and the pet's a member of the team. My healthcare nurses, the pet owner, receptionist, everyone's a member of the team, because that way we can all say, hey, you know what? I think that their quality time is maybe starting to trail off. And then we make decisions together. A lot of pet owners, especially end-of-life patients, have a hard time with making the decision. And so when you have more than one person involved, not that I'm unbiased, because I grow very attached to a patient I maybe see every week or every other week. So sometimes I even have to take a step back and say, okay, let's make sure that we're making the right decision for them. But that's a pretty rewarding part of my day. Acupuncture is pretty amazing. Pain management is pretty amazing. And you don't have to it doesn't take a lot of knowledge. I would say it takes more creativity than anything. I think the veterinarians, probably if a veterinarian listens to this, they would understand. Veterinarians can be a lot like MacGyver. You know, you may not have a lot of resources. You may have a lot of roadblocks, but you're going to figure it out. I mean, if I have duct tape and some saran wrap and a rubber band, I could probably fix just about anything. But I think that when you're being end-of-life care, when you're thinking about how to manage end-of-life care, being really creative goes a long way for everybody. And then you're like, wow, that actually worked. Or that didn't work, and how can we tweak it? So, but yeah, I'm very passionate about end-of-life care and pain management and nutrition, just for the life of the pet. But
which would come in handy with the P3 when we get to that, just with nutrition.
Oh yeah.
Before we do that, though, I wanted to ask about your canine rehab certification that you got from the UTK, University of
Yeah,
Texas.
oh yeah. After I was certified as an acupuncture, I just felt that acupuncture does a lot to help reduce pain, helps animals move better. But the big thing is if you keep repeating the same movements, those pain points all just come back. So it's kind of like the idea is if you're slouching at your computer all day, every day, you're going to have the same neck pain. Even if I treated you for it. So I could come in and treat you for your neck pain, and you're like, oh, I feel so much better. And then you go back to the same behavior. So with rehab training, I actually learned how to change movement behaviors in dogs and cats to help them have the physical therapy that they need at home or at the office to improve mobility. So because without mobility, why be a dog if you can't get up and go to the bathroom and
Chase a squirrel.
And if you're a cat, if you can't get in and out of the litter box. So there's a lot of really cool people that teach you a lot of random creative things and I think that's what that rehab just added a layer to my knowledge of how to get them moving, how to consider. I treat a lot of dogs that have 3 legs or cats that have 3 legs, and you think to yourself, okay, well, this animal has to have 3 legs for the rest of their life. There's a lot of weight shifting that occurs. I have to consider the other limbs that are now bearing more weight. So how can I strengthen those limbs? What can I do to massage them at home? What modalities can we use to make them feel good so that when they're 15, they can still walk around on 3 limbs. So it's the rehab part of things was just an extra, I would say, an extra layer. And people always say it's another tool in the toolbox. But I think of it as just being part of the normal daily behaviors that we encourage pet owners to do. And there's lots of options. You can use the underwater treadmill to build strength, swimming, different types of exercises and stretches. And so I think the acupuncture does an amazing job, but I usually add that in with, simple things like daily massage or heat and ice and stretching, and we do a lot of at-home exercises to build core strength or to build, their hamstrings. So we do a lot of creative things, but the idea is to have the whole animal be moving and functioning as a unit that's nice and smooth and even as best we can.
Well, yeah, in the time that you came out of college to now, that just the whole people are paying more attention to their small animals than they.
Oh, absolutely.
I remember them in my youth. Yes.
Well, when I graduated from veterinary school, dogs were still sleeping on the floor, and now basically somebody's getting kicked out of the bed to accommodate the dog. So before I graduated from college, dogs were sleeping outside. The dogs are outside dogs, and then they came inside, and now they're on the bed. And my husband and I had to get a much bigger bed because I was like, well, gotta accommodate the dog, and he just rolls his eyes at me because I want to cuddle with my pups. So it's just gonna happen. Now we have a cat and 2 dogs, so 1 dog stays on the floor. We're mean to him, but he's too big to get in the bed. But I definitely find that the way the dog and the cat have become a member of the family has just been so neat to see over my 20 plus years of being a DVM. I have really just seen such a change, and it's great for our job because it makes it a lot easier. We have more people willing to do more for their pets, as opposed to us fighting an uphill battle Like, we really love your pet and we really want you to do X, Y, or Z. Now it's, I really love my pet and I want my vet to do X, Y, and Z. And so it's, the tables have turned a little bit, and I think it's pretty amazing for our profession, because we now have real buy-in from our clientele, and a much greater percentage. So I find it more fulfilling, because I don't have to talk people into taking care of their pets. They want to take care of their pets. So
The animal-human bond is stronger than it has been.
It's extraordinary. And now the downside of all of that is there are a lot more pets. There are a lot more dogs and cats living in households, which means we need more veterinarians. So we are undergoing a pretty significant nationwide shortage. And also because I think veterinarians are now, my generation, we just work and get it done. And I've put in many hours a week at the, sacrifice a lot in my personal life to build my professional life. And I think that sentiment has changed now, where work-life balance is now in the balance of life versus work. So I think that people are taking better care of themselves, but it also means that they have less office hours, or they're less available for their high client needs. So it's a catch-22, because you need veterinarians that are available, but then you also want people to have a life.
And did COVID change some of that? Did you notice if there was an uptick in?
Oh, COVID changed a lot of things. Yeah, there are a lot of people who got pets during COVID. And the downside is that, everybody really cares about their pets, but they didn't get a lot of socialization. Like, a lot of dogs didn't get a lot of socialization during COVID because everybody was kind of hunkered down. And they also got very attached to their owners if they were at home. So I think there's a lot of transition time, like, oh, I'm going back to the office, and my dog has to be at home and I'm not there all day. Luckily, I worked the whole time, so my dogs never got attached to me quite that much. But I think that there were some attachment issues that, people went through, where they had to transition their dogs to them being gone. And then the socialization aspect. I think we have a population of dogs during that 1.5 to 2 years where people were really hunkered down, that just didn't have a lot of human contact beyond their pet owners. So I imagine our behaviorist sees a lot more dogs that maybe need some socialization. I'm sure teachers and kids are going through the same thing. I think socialization is such an important part of our life. We all need people. Other people and dogs need other people. So I find it interesting. I can always tell a COVID dog, always, by their behavior.
Really?
Because they're a little bit more attached to their person. They're maybe more nervous when they're out of their home environment, because when they're in their socialization period from puppy to about 12 to 16 weeks, if they've only ever seen one or two people, it's terrifying to go walk around Boomer Lake and see a whole lot more people, or to go to a football game. Oh my gosh, I couldn't even imagine that. Those dogs would probably have a nervous breakdown. They'd be like, all these people, all wearing orange, like this big wave of orange. I think that would freak out most dogs, but COVID dogs probably more so than not. So COVID put a big strain on veterinary medicine, and I think that there are a lot of really amazing unsung heroes through the COVID. I know that the frontline nursing and doctors and EMTs, all of those people work so hard in lots of different ways. But the veterinarians, I was pretty impressed with how the veterinarians just changed what they did. They had to change within a couple of days. Their whole practice life changed. So I think it was pretty amazing. Again, because veterinarians are MacGyvers. They're like, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. And I mean, we saw it here in the veterinary teaching hospital. There was a little bit of a couple of days of how are we going to figure this out, and it happened, right before spring break, and then by the end of spring break, it was figured out, and it just switched. So I was pretty impressed. I mean, that's when you put a bunch of veterinarians to task. I find that they're pretty creative and pretty impressive with what they can get done with very little information. I mean, it's pretty cool. So I give them all credit. I mean, especially the people out in practice, they had to just change everything that they did and just went, It's pretty amazing.
It was. Yeah. From watching from the outside, it was. I was impressed too. Okay, so let's segue into P3 and America's Healthiest Campus, whatever they were trying to accomplish during that time in 2012, 2013. How did you get involved with?
Well, I think it's kind of an interesting story. We had a cardiologist who was here at the time. She was a very good friend of mine. And Kendria Cost, who is the director of the pet therapy for Ann Hargis pet therapy program now, her dog had been going to see the cardiologist. And my friend just recommended me as a primary care veterinarian for the health of her other pets. And she said, hey, you should just come in and meet this primary care doctor. I think that you guys have similar philosophies and, you might like her. So I met Kendria. She was originally a client of mine. We just had a nice connection. I think that I understood what she wanted for her pets. I was just my normal self and loved on her animals. And so that was kind of my introduction to her. And I think she was my client for a couple of years. And then she was working with Ann. She was her executive assistant, and she was working with Ann Hargis, and they had this idea that, hey, we have this great initiative. We want to be America's Healthiest Campus, and looking at all of the different aspects of that. And with Kendria and Ann's love of animals, they just thought that was a natural extension of that. So Kendria had brought it up to me, and we kind of brainstormed about it a little bit. I like to say, and it's actually true, we kind of hatched out a lot of it on a napkin at Starbucks because I never am prepared for anything. So she has a book and she's very organized, whereas I'm like, let me grab a napkin and can I borrow your pen from the barista? So we, kind of hatched out this plan as to what it could look like and how the veterinary school could be part of it. Now, I was very blessed, and I give all of my successes with the P3 program and my success at the university, all is because of Patricia Henthrone. She had made a very generous donation, and I am the Henthrone Professor of Small Animal Medicine. So with that position, with that professorship, I had the funds to be able to get things started on my side of things. And really, I give all the credit to Mrs. Henthrone. She, without her donation, I would never have been able to get my side of things off the ground. I went to the dean at the time and pitched our idea. There are a lot of nuances of how things go at the university, so I learned a lot about those nuances, but I would say that my professorship really paved the way. I didn't have to walk a gravel road. I had a paved road because of Patricia Henthrone. And I felt that, hey, you know what? I really want to make this part of our outreach that we do here. And Dr. Sander, who was the dean at the time, gave me the nod. And that's when we started to look at, who do we need on campus to make this happen? So our hospital director, the dean, so Dr. Neer and Dr. Sander at the time were really pretty excited about it. And so Kendria and Mrs. Hargis did their side with human resources and counseling and trying to get their key stakeholders together. Like who do we need? OSU Legal, we need these people to just come together and let's say, all right, we want to launch this program. How do we go about it? What does it look like? And so it was really neat because it was the first time that, in my experience here, that I got to collaborate with other departments and colleges on campus. And I met some really amazing people. I got to work with people I probably would never have crossed paths with because everyone gets kind of in their silos. And so it was a really cool experience for everyone to brainstorm and, all right, how do we do this? How do we get a pilot class going? What does that look like? And it was fun. We learned a lot. We learned a lot from each other. We made a lot of mistakes, not big ones, but little hiccups that you're like, oh, we'll never do that again. And it was a fun time to be at the ground level and to see everyone's passion for the dogs really played a big role. Now I find it humorous because everybody at the beginning was very passionate about the dogs, except for me, because I'm coming at it from a different standpoint. I'm really passionate about people. So I thought it was interesting because I was like, wow, I just can't wait for the students to not look at their phones all the time.
Yes.
That was a big part of it for me, to put your phone down and actually talk and engage with other people. The dogs, just the conduit. They open people up. They have this amazing God-given ability to just touch a soul pretty easily. They don't have to work at it too hard. But that just opens up. Even if it's a silly discussion about the dog, it may be the only discussion that person had all day. It may be the only true human contact that person had that maybe just made their day. Now they'll blame the dog. Well, the dog was amazing, but the person at the end of the leash is a pivotal part of all of it. Just to get the kids off their phone and say hello. And dogs don't need to learn how to communicate. They got that down pat. Like the leash is like the dog is the bridge. They just get you to the other person. I mean, it's pretty amazing to see people's barriers come down. It's just such a social barrier relief. Like the dog just drops any social barriers, and you can see it happen. These kids, like, they see the dog and they drop their backpack and they put their phone to the side and they, all of a sudden get down onto the ground and are petting them, and they're they have gone from someone who's maybe offstandish and stuck in their own world to a position of vulnerability and then they just open themselves up to the dog, and the dog's like, hey, I'm here and I'm showing you love. And then you have this person who is attached to the dog who engages this other person who's in a vulnerable and hopefully very happy state. And then not only do they get the benefit of the dog interaction, they get the benefit of the person interacting. Even if you just commiserate about the weather, or even if you talk about a football win or loss, or what are you doing this weekend? Sometimes that's all a person needs to, I don't know, keep them sane. I can't imagine living in the digital world where all of our, I know that's where my teenager is, living in the digital world without that true social contact. So I think that the dogs are amazing. They just know how to do it. They don't need to be taught. Now, sometimes they need to be taught manners, though. So manners is a big part of it. So they may be really good at it, but manners is important. But I think it's amazing. Like, that's why I really love the program, because I already know from my years of experience how much dogs change people's lives. I already know that. I see it every day in the exam room. I'm like, I know the impact that they have on a individual person or a family. So I didn't have to be sold on that. My hope was still going back to what my vocation is. How can I help people? And I can help people through animals. And that is why P3 works for me, why it fits with what my passion is. And so I really, really thought it was a cool program, and it was a great idea. And everybody had you could see everyone's passion kind of come in together. Everyone kind of just linked together and said, okay, how can we make this happen? And it happened against a lot of barriers.
I'm thinking, well, 10 years later, did you think, from that day, did you think, 10 years we'll be still doing this?
Never in 100 years did I think we would almost have 100 dogs. Like, I knew it was going to take off. So this is the thing. I knew it was going to be a consistent program. I never knew we'd have this much excitement. I never knew we'd have this much buy-in from the highest level of administration down to the new student. Like, you're spanning an entire group of the campus family. And I don't think I've met a person ever who has ever had anything negative to say. Not ever. Even people who have had, nuanced issues with the program, say they're allergic to dogs or say they're afraid of dogs. None of those people have ever wanted it to not succeed. They're always like, how can we format this? How can we change things around? How can we adjust to meet certain needs? I've never met anyone who's like, wow, I really can't wait for this to fail. And from all levels, that's pretty amazing. I think it's actually almost an impossibility in today's world for everybody to come together without any hidden agendas, without any viewpoint that's a negative. And I think that everybody came at it with, we're going to make this happen. What's the best way we can do it? How can we grow and adjust and morph to meet everyone's needs? I mean, there are always different nuances. Like, there are certain places you can't take a dog. Certainly can't take them into the areas where there's food prep, or you can't take them into certain research areas, and you can't take them into certain labs. And there are some nuances of the program, but there's not anyone who's like, well, how can we not figure this out? Okay, well, we really want these lab personnel to be visited by the dogs. Okay, so we do it outside and we have them visit in a different manner, or we encourage them to go to maybe a conference room where the dogs can be. So I think that's kind of the cool thing, and looking at it globally, bird's eye perspective, is that actually everybody who was involved really wanted the program to succeed. And we're excited about the program incorporating their department or their college into the mix. So I think it's really cool because when you look at it, everyone's working for the greater good, and that's pretty amazing.
So how did you pick the first 8? I mean, the pilot project was 8.
Yes, ma'am.
Why 8 and who 8?
Oh well, so just before we started, there was a tornado. So in Moore and Shawnee. So we were going through here at the veterinary school, we were going through a pretty big time because there was a lot of people doing disaster relief because of all the animals that were impacted. So, once the state vet called for disaster relief, a lot of people at the veterinary school were deployed to help. But maybe there was a dog named Evie who was left behind after someone abandoned her in the yard in Shawnee. And she's probably my favorite story of all of them. So Evie came to the veterinary school and she had some injuries. At that time, we didn't have any funding for disaster relief. So Evie was this sweet shepherd, and we didn't really know I'm totally breaking the rules. We didn't really know what we were supposed to do with her because she had been injured. She'd come in injured after the Shawnee tornado. And that was before the Moore tornado. So we kind of just kept moving her in the hospital, different places, so she'd never show up on the census. So I know that was wrong. Sorry. We'll ask for forgiveness as opposed to permission. So we moved her around. The veterinary students and I just kept moving her around the hospital. And we were taking care of her, but we never really let her get onto the census. So, because there was really nobody to charge because she was an abandoned animal. We didn't want her to go to the shelter because she was so sweet. So I had talked to Kendria and said, hey, this dog really needs an owner because she was been abandoned. And Kendria talked to Lorinda Schrammel, who was in Human Resources at the time. And Lorinda came over and she met her, and it was love at first sight. And so Evie went to live with the Schrammels, and she was one of our first P3 dogs. And then we had Charlie, who Kendria had found, and she has her own story for Charlie because he just definitely squirreled his way into her heart. And so she had her dog, and then we had Scruff. And now Scruff is an amazing story because he had been shot and he had shattered his elbow, and he was brought in by an OSU student. And we looked at him and said, he definitely needs to have surgery. There's no way to fix it. Either he has to be surgerized or he's going to lose his front leg. So this OSU student did a crowdfunding. This was before really crowdfunding was a thing, but she did a crowdfunding. She got $5,000 to pay for his surgery. So our surgeons here did his surgery, and I did Scruff's rehab. So he was living with this student as a foster, and I did his rehab, and we got him to where he was pretty well managed. He still had an external fixture on, and we introduced Scruff to Ann and Burns. And so he just squirreled his way into their hearts. And so Ann and Ann Hargis adopted Scruff. And so we had a couple other people who were interested. I have mainly all of the first group were my clients and friends. And then we had, so this, because I'm admittedly an unorganized person, I had a friend of mine, Connie Pirtle, who was a client. She was a cat person, though, not a dog person. But she used to work for the Met and the New York Philharmonic and the U.S. Supreme Court. So she basically was responsible for engaging volunteers. That was her job at the Philharmonic. So she would get people together and she was basically a manager of volunteers. Now, she had been retired by the time I had met her, but she had a lot of cool experiences. And she was organizing Supreme Court justices, which I imagine that's probably like herding cats too. So I knew that's what she had done in her previous life. And I said, Connie, I am not good at organization. Is there any way that you could help me with this? And she volunteered her time and became our, basically our organizer at the time. So Connie helped us understand the world of a volunteer, because that's a world that you don't think about when you are a volunteer, or when you have volunteers. You don't think about that the connection needs to be made, what the expectations are, how you manage volunteers is very different than managing an employee. But that was Connie's expertise. And also she was the most organized person in the world. And so she would help us with all of our meetings. She would do all the minutes. She helped us with all of the application and the organization of training classes and how we were going to do everything. So her input and expertise was, I believe, priceless. And she volunteered for the first few years, and then they gave her a part-time position so she could get a few dollars for all the work that she did. But she was very passionate about the program, and she loved the people. And unfortunately, she's had a stroke, and she's just unfortunately in a nursing home now. But her impact was just amazing. So, and it was all because she was a client friend of mine, and it's because of the relationship that I had with her in the exam room. I just asked. I mean, that's the cool thing with the first class. There were people that I knew. I already knew their dogs. I knew the person, and I was like, "Hey, what do you think? Hey, what do you think?" And so that it was a testament, I think, to my relationships with my clients that first class, and how one person with a lot of connections can just say, "All right, let's see if we can make this happen." Just a bunch of 8 random dogs and 8 random people coming together and actually making the first class. I mean, never in my worldview would I ever thought it'd be where it's at now. But it was interesting to see how it all came together. And so Connie was my right and left hand, because I couldn't organize a paper bag to go together. Like I everything would be written on napkins if it was up to me. But Connie kept me in line, and she kept me organized, and she kept the group organized and in line, and she helped with all the communications, and really she was amazing.
So it was initially run out of Batman.
Yes, so we because they're all my clients. We had our training classes here. Everything was, but it was also pretty small, and we learned a lot. It was at the beginning. It was that the dogs had an evaluation by myself and the trainer. But I had already evaluated the dogs. At the first group, we already knew who everybody was. But as time goes by, we started adding in more layers, because, again, the dog is really important, but the person at the end of the leash is important too. So you have to consider the personality of that person, as well as their approachability, their openness, their willingness to engage. because you don't want a dog who's like super engaged with a person who's very closed off. You need that human interaction. So we learned a lot as to how to look at the team, the owner handler team with the dog. So it's like we don't just accept the dog in the program, you have to accept the team. So that was something that we learned. And we also learned what training works, what training doesn't work, how we could utilize people with amazing skills and knowledge base. So another person who was really instrumental was Vicky Cups. She helped us with a number of training classes. She also helped with Tulsa's training classes. But her dogs have been therapy dogs for years at the hospitals in Tulsa, and she was a trainer as well as a Alliance of Therapy Dogs tester. So she had this wealth of knowledge, and she came to us again. She was a client of mine. I said, "Hey, can you help us?" And she was amazing. She just absolutely not a problem. So she was very passionate about it, and with her input, we made a lot of changes with how the dogs were trained and what that looked like for evaluating their behavior in certain settings, how to do more troubleshooting. So it's just amazing when I look back, all the people who are involved on the veterinary side of things were all clients of mine. That's all of them. They're all people that I had already had a relationship with who, without a doubt, full in, happy to help. It was cool. It was really neat.
So that would be how you came up with the idea that they had to be the Alliance certified.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was one part of it, because legal, OSU legal also, we needed to have program standards, and that was something that we worked through. I mean, when we started out, our program standards looked one way, and now they look a totally different way. And it's just because you learn things and you say, okay, well, this is our standard. Oh, well, this didn't really work. We had to tweak it for X or Y. And it's really kind of, it just as everything evolved. I mean, it really was this grassroots effort that's evolved into a nonprofit organization. I mean, that's, just literally a handful of people to this amazing Center for Pet Therapy and, a campus that's considered America's healthiest campus. I mean, it's pretty amazing how a grassroots effort really just organically started and then literally evolved into what it is today.
And it's over 100 dogs now?
I'm not sure of the actual count. Unfortunately, one of the hardest part of the program is that we've lost both people and pets. And so when you lose the pets, and they don't live as long as people. So we've lost a number of very important and instrumental dogs and people in the program. And that's always heart-wrenching for everybody, especially the students that the dogs have touched. As their veterinarian, I unfortunately am used to the end of life, but it's very hard for, I think, everybody that's come in contact with the dog and the owner, because everyone builds more relationships, and they just spider web out. It's this amazing web of influence these dogs have, and so their loss is felt very profoundly on campus. And then we've had people leave. We've had, unfortunately, owners who've passed away. And so that, I think that really is the biggest negative, is that you grow attached and you grow to love and respect both the people and the pets, and it's really hard to lose them, but it's part of life, and it helps us to honor them, because then we can highlight their attention to our campus family and their love of our campus family and their willingness to give of themselves and of their time and their finances and all that they have done. So it's been pretty amazing. The human aspect of it's pretty cool.
So the current dogs, do you do health checks on them, or has that changed since from the beginning when you were doing?
A lot of them after the first few classes, they started to be more my clientele and more of a deeper population on campus. What I do is I see any dog that's applied to the program. My team, so students and nurses and myself, we meet all the dogs, we do physical exams on them, make sure that they're okay to serve. There are, some times where maybe we step in and say, this is probably not a good fit for your dog. I know that you really want them to do it, and this would be amazing, but it's not a good fit for them, or they have some health issues that we really need to consider. And that helps us to give owners the animal perspective aspect of things. Then we have the trainer, Dr. Huckabee, who's our current trainer with our campus. And she's a former student and client of mine. She's amazing. So then she does a behavior evaluation to make sure that they're trainable. Everyone has nuances. Some dogs like to jump up. Some dogs don't like to walk on leash. There are things that are easily trained, so she has to consider those things. There are some things that are not easily trained. Like, I can't easily train a dog to not bite people. Or sometimes barking can be a big thing that a trainer has to work on, and the owner has to do all the homework. And then we have the advisory board that does the human interviews to make sure that the people understand the program guidelines, understand what's expected of them, and then also get a feel for how that they interact with other people. So it certainly has changed a lot from the beginning. But for the most part, I see the dogs every year. I try to see them every year, unless they have their own veterinarian that they're really in love with. I don't want to take anyone away from their veterinarian. That's not my role. But we've got some industry partners that have helped us out a lot. So we can provide a discount for their wellness, their yearly wellness plan. We help them out with their flea and tick and heartworm preventative and their deworming. So the goal is that the veterinary hospital wants the dogs to be as healthy as possible when they're serving on campus, because they're a reflection of us, and we, healthy, and we are thinking healthy animals, healthy people. That's how we're coming at it. So if we can keep the animals healthy, then they're ambassadors for good veterinary care, and they're ambassadors for what we do here at the hospital. And hopefully everyone tells people who their vet is, and that they come and see us at the teaching hospital. So our students get access to the therapy dogs, so they understand that these dogs have a job and that they're serving on campus, and how we accommodate the working dog is always a little bit different than kind of the average bear. So it gives them the opportunity to see, well, I need to make sure that this dog has all of their P's and Q's, and I's are dotted and T's are crossed because I know they're going to be interacting with a large population of people. So veterinarians' job is to make sure that there's no communicable or zoonotic diseases that our dogs can give to people. And we certainly also don't want our dogs to have anything communicable that could be given to another dog on campus. So we're the first line of defense for that. So I take that very seriously in making sure that our dogs are super healthy. The other thing is that we have the emergency clinic, which, so if anybody has any difficulty on campus, anything happens on campus, any dog is injured, they have a place to come to right away. So I think that that's a big part of things as well, that we're open. And if we've had events on campus where dogs have become ill or have had health issues, and just bring them right over. And we would of course encourage that for anybody, but those dogs, have a big place in all of our hearts. So they get flagged right away. We know they're a P3 dog, and we know that ahead of time. And the primary care team has a big relationship. It's not, I have been the veterinarian this whole time, and my team is now grown. So trying to help my new veterinarians become more part of the program so I can be more of a mentor and allow them to take part in it, because it will make them happy too. They'll feel more part of campus as opposed to being kind of on the outside of campus. They get involved on campus, which is important.
They'll be collecting the cards too, the training
cards. Oh my gosh,
those
training cards are the best. We have those training cards all over our office. So when you walk into the medicine office where I am, training cards galore, because, and I know that the students have they try to get as many cards, and I feel all I can see is that someone has they just take those old baseball card things and put all of the dogs' cards in them, and they try to collect them all, which I think that's cute. I'm sure that they have contests to see who has the most cards, but the training cards, the little P3 cards are adorable. And I personally like the most recent ones where the dogs are doing something funny or kind of having their personality show through. So
you would have been on the advisory board when that decision was made to, let's do this and see how it goes.
Anytime something fun is happening, I want to be part of that. Although I'll have to say that my favorite part of Kendria's personality is that, one, she can always come up with a pun. There's always some punny thing that she comes up with the program where she can morph words to go dog in a heartbeat. It cracks me up. And she's always so engaged with the students that she's so young at heart that she comes up with the cutest things, like the training cards, the social media posts, the videos that they've done, all of that stuff. She cracks me up. The things that she can come up, like the Barca laureate. Who in the world would come up with that? Or the Rough Riders, and all of the little nuanced things that she has. I think she just has a talent for making even the most mundane things fun and engaging for P3.
Would be good in PR in general, wouldn't she?
She would be. I think so. I mean, if it hasn't been for her commitment, because that woman has worked her tail off, no pun intended, to do all of P3 from the beginning. She's had, she had help from Connie, and she had help from her assistant, but she works tirelessly. I mean, always online, always posting. She's been the biggest cheerleader, finding different ways to build the program. I mean, I would say that she has been the worker bee, and she has just worked just without complaint, I think, to get it done because she believes in it so much. I mean, she really took Ann's vision and ran with it. So, I mean, it's really her paws are all over this program, and there have been a lot of us who've put in a lot of effort, but she takes the cake.
And I understand she's in the celebration garden, P3 celebration.
Yes.
That's her.
That is her.
She did not tell me that. Others have.
I think she wanted to kill her husband when that happened. Because when they unveiled it, I was like, oh, that's Kendria. Yes, but and she should be recognized for all that she's done, because she really has been the cheerleader, the coach, the assistant coach, the manager. I mean, she has been the driving force behind the program. She really has. I mean, I at the beginning, the veterinary aspect of it, we had a lot of part of it on the veterinary side of things, and I would say that there have been a lot of people who've worked really hard on this side of things, but no one can hold a candle to Kendria.
And I guess without the name and the help from Ann, or Mrs. Hargis, it would have taken a little longer maybe to get off.
Yes, I think that Ann, well, when I said that Mrs. Henthrone had paved my way, I think that Ann helped put the yellow brick road together. So I think that really with Ann passion for the program and her love of dogs and her love of people, and she knows the impact that dogs have on human health. So I think that Ann had a lot of vision, which I think that's a big part of it. So Ann saw this happening, the program as it is now 10 years ago. So her vision, and then her role at the university, being the first cowgirl and really helping to get everybody on board, because you can't say no to Ann Hargis. She's adorable. It's impossible for me to say no. She has such a good heart, and she is just the most kind and caring person. And even if you wanted to say no, you couldn't. You'd be like, no, okay, sure, I'll do it for you, no problem. So I think that it wasn't just Ann's position, I think that made the difference. I think it was Ann herself that made the difference. I mean, she just has a way with people, and she really, I think, encourages people to want the best for others. So I see where Ann's influence would, yes, of course, when you have a higher administration and you're the president's wife, yeah, we could say that would be a big part of it. But I think if Ann wasn't who she was, then it wouldn't have happened. If Ann wasn't the person that was leading it, it wouldn't have happened the way it did. Because you just really honestly know that she cares about everybody. I mean, I think that she cares about the students, she cares about the staff, she cares about the faculty. So it's really hard to say no to someone who has the campus family's best interests at heart.
And if I'm not mistaken, she was one of the main people in getting the emotional wellness part of the America's Healthiest Campus, having that aspect of it.
Yeah, so she's just a very empathetic person, and she remembers everything about everybody. So what's more endearing to have someone you can just see on the street and say, "Hey, Ann, how you doing?" And then she'll ask you all the things that she knows about you, because she actually listened to you and she cares about people's lives. And so I think that is I think that when you take someone in a position that's in a position of influence, and you marry that to a personality that really cares about people, you're just bound for success.
It's taken a whole team coming together to make this.
Oh yeah, well, and the area of influence, and then, but then you have human resources had to get on board, legal had to be on board,
yeah.
The dean of our college had to be on board, our hospital director. I mean, there are, like, just on my side of the thing, I can think of 3 administrators that have to be on board and supportive. And again, if it wasn't for my professorship, we probably would have had a much more difficult, rocky beginning at the veterinary school. So, I mean, I just am so grateful to have been honored with that. And then it just made things so much easier for P3. I mean, I really firmly believe that.
Well, the timing was right. Everything.
The timing was perfect. And I got to meet a lot of really amazing people and even more amazing dogs. And
Are you in the coloring book?
I do not. I don't think I'm in the coloring book.
I don't know. I've
not looked. I didn't look in the coloring book. I'm not a big fan of. It's so silly. Like, I'm not a big fan of having my picture taken or being part of things. But I always seem to get stuck there. I always seem to get, hey, let's get your picture. I'm like, no, that's okay. We don't need it for posterity's sake. But yes, I definitely, and when I did my TED Talks right at the same time that we introduced P3 to the world. So we were back to back. So I did TED Talks, which again was another huge honor. And then Lorinda presented with Evie about our pet therapy program at the same time. So it really, honestly, the blessings were abundant, and the support was really there. So our initial undertaking, it seemed to have everything kind of came together just so well.
Was it important to have the pet therapy part of that when you were describing it? You know, not just Pete's Pet Posse, but pet therapy along with that.
How do you mean? I don't understand.
Well, you've got service dogs and you've got therapy dogs, and then you've got
emotional support. Yeah. Well, it's very important because titles actually really do matter, especially in the service dog realm. So, service dogs have a very different role. They are meant to perform a task or to serve a purpose. And they have a lot of protections under the law. So the people with service dogs, they have a lot of protections. Emotional support dogs or animals, so there's a lot of different emotional support animals, ESAs. They have some different rules and requirements, and they're mainly meant for that one person. The therapy dog is meant for everybody else. So having that title, and then also having the Alliance for Therapy Dogs as our support, because that, when you have a really big organization that's your main support, that allows you then to develop what the program looks like from their expectations as well. But having calling it pet therapy allows everyone to know that the dogs aren't for us, they're for you, and they are meant to make you happy. That's their role. The dog's role is to be just, hey, I'm here to make your day, and talk to this person here, and talk to the people that are around you. And when all the students are on the ground rubbing bellies, they just all have fun, and then they talk and engage with each other. And even if make friends. And I think it's funny, these dogs have groupies. Like they collect their cards, they follow them on campus. I mean, the dogs are little rock stars. But yeah, knowing that it's not a service dog for this individual, knowing it's not an emotional support for this individual, but the pet therapy label is, we're here for you.
Okay. Do you know of any students that have that P3 maybe help them get into vet? Choose veterinary?
I don't think so. I think most of the kids that come to OSU are their wannabe pre-vet because
and then they get involved with P3, I guess.
Hopefully, when they're undergrads, when they're in veterinary school, we have our own group of therapy dogs. We have our team, which are the P3 dogs. That most of them are veterinary nurses' dogs. So they go on campus and they do their events, but then they also can do the events at the college, which is just across the street. So that's been kind of nice. We've had a couple of faculty who've had their dogs in the program. But unfortunately, both of those faculty members have left, but that's kind of nice because then you have one that is readily available. I mean, usually Ghost, who is our veterinary nurse's dog, he's usually here most days. So if there is a problem, and that's kind of nice, the thought process of being proactive rather than reactive. If there's a problem, if there's a student issue, our counselor can call and say, hey, is Ghost here? Is Carson here? And then we can have a dog go over to our counselor, which is in the college, and hang out if they need it. Because it's, counseling on campus has dogs that are available to them. That's why we want to have dogs in the union, so that way they're available. You try to, at the beginning, we had our small group that all knew me. And then as we got bigger, we were more considerate of placing the dogs in kind of the higher risk areas, placing the dogs in high visibility areas. All of those things are things that they really started to consider as we grew, and making sure we didn't have too much of a concentration of dogs in one location, because we want to spread the wealth, and we want to encourage lots of people to be involved, because you don't just want everybody to be at the Spears School of Business. You want them to be in ag, you want them to be in math, you want them to be in biology. Like, you want them to be in other places, so that way you can have the biggest footprint. Here at the veterinary school, our students are pretty high risk, just by way of their graduate program is incredibly difficult and very high stress. So having dogs that serve in the program within the college, I think, makes a big difference.
More than a horse.
Well, you can have a therapy horse, which they have talked about, and I said, I'm going to draw the line for me right there, because Ann has mentioned it, the miniature horse.
Oh, BB.
Yes.
Or whatever. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it looks like BB, but we have a couple of people that have miniature horses. And then there's also been talk of cats, which I red flagged because the amount of allergies to cats tends to be a little bit higher. And cats it's harder to find a group of cats that are really
lap cats.
Lap for lots of people. Like they're, I also don't know how that would go. They'd have to be in someone's office and travel back and forth. And dogs are a lot easier than cats. I would say that I would probably do the miniature horse before the cats. But I really was like, can we just keep it at dogs? Not that I love cats, and I love horses, but I was like, it just seems easier, less liability, and
it's harder to get them in the buildings.
And nobody wants to pick up after a miniature horse. It's a big
That
mess.
too.
And nobody likes. I don't like litter boxes everywhere, so that would be hard. Whereas dogs, you just can pick it up easy in the grass. So
I guess that was discussed early on too.
yes, you always have to consider what goes in also has to come out. I think our biggest struggle early on, which is probably the more humorous struggle, is I'd see the dogs come in for their yearly wellness, and I would have to say, okay, I understand that everybody wants to give your dogs treats, but you're going to have to slow the roll on this because they're getting fat. Because of course, training, they get lots of treats during training, but then they get on campus and everybody wants to give them goodies. And so I think that we've struggled with weight on a few of them. And I would say that we've had to have the conversation like, okay, so we're going to have to either cut food back or cut treats back because we're starting to get rounder. We've lost our waist. So we've gotten creative. But they have. I would say that's probably the biggest side effect of being a P3 dog is increase in waist size because people love to feed them. They give them lots of food, and I'm the person that's saying keep them skinny, and they all just get kind of chunky at the beginning. But their owners learn that they need to adjust the amount of kibble they get.
And pre-approved
to prevent obesity in their therapy dog. Because what kind of ambassador of health is that? When your dog is really overweight, and I'm the one preaching against it. So usually, it's usually a humorous conversation because it doesn't matter. Everywhere they go, people will have dog treat bowls on their desk just to give the P3 dogs because I have a great love of feeding dogs and watching them sleep. Those are the two, probably, if I have a list of 10 things that I love in this world, those are two of them. And I get it. I would hand out goodies all the time if I could. Oh, if only to be engendered as the nicest person. They're like, oh, we love you so much. And I'm like, I know. But I'm very guilty of it. So I understand that I'm a food pusher too, but I usually tell them, just notice when they lose the waist, you just have to cut back a little bit.
When they have to expand their vest.
They have to make it bigger. We had to get a bigger harness. That has happened. Or when the roll is on either side and you're like, okay, wow, that's a lot of roll. So usually we talk about the waist. Like if they start to lose their waist, they're going to get bigger elsewhere.
I guess that you would have to, since you check them once a year, you would know if they gained a few extra.
Yeah, and I usually get to see them usually twice a year, I would say, for most dogs. But we have a veterinary nurse who's dedicated to making sure that everybody has their wellness program, that they get their preventatives. BI, Boehringer Ingram, has provided us with our products for flea and tick prevention, that's a huge gift that they give in kind. So that's been really nice. They originally were Marielle, so I had a friend. So again, it just comes down to I have a friend, and I just reached out and said, hey, we're starting this pilot program. What do you think about helping me out? And they were open to it. We then reached out to Hills Pet Food. We reached out to Royal Canin and Purina and worked with the food companies to help get discounted food. I know that Hills and Royal Canin are really big supporters of that. So our owners can order their pets' food at a reduced cost. It's just a way to, I don't want to say we do it because we want people to be in the program so they get free stuff. That was never my intention. My intention is always, hey, if you're in the program, how can I help you? Like, what can I do to help you keep your dog healthy when they're serving on campus? Because our pet owners give a lot of their time, and I think that that should be rewarded. And if that's something that I can do to help them out, I'm all for it. So I know that the advisory board spends a lot of time working with the food companies. Our hospital director did a lot of work to make it a possibility. So I think it's pretty cool. It's a substantial discount, and then they get their free preventative. So they get a lot of discounts that from the veterinary college to help keep their dog healthy. So that is what we want to do. The other thing that we do is we do owner continuing education program as well. So I'm usually the spring, so we do Zoom meetings, and they're recorded, and we talk about preventatives, we talk about heartworm disease, talk about heat stroke, first aid, behavior topics. So there's just a kind of a big umbrella of topics that we cover with pet owners because they want to know, and everyone has questions about CBD, and so they're like, well, hey, what do you think about CBD? And I'm like, well, you're probably not the only person asking, so let me do a talk on it. Or dental health, how can we keep the dog's teeth clean so when they're, people's faces are so close they don't get knocked out by halitosis. So we try really hard to provide the pet owners with the ability to understand more about their dog's health as well as keep them healthy. And then also to maybe spark a conversation. If someone's like, oh my gosh, your dog's hair coat is so beautiful, they can say, well, this is the dog food that I feed. And when I switched to this food, I really noticed an improvement of their hair coat. Or your dog has got amazing muscle and they look great, and okay, well, this is what I do to keep them healthy. So the hope is that it'll spark a conversation as to what someone else could do for their pet, how they could keep them healthy.
And as part of that, teaching the owners how to tell when they have had enough, if they've had enough interaction for the day.
Yeah, well, that's something that's been a long discussed question, and so there's a lot of research that's been going into what is there too much therapy that a dog can do. And I would say with most owners can tell when their dog is getting fatigued. I always encourage them to have work days, like to say, okay, these are the days of the week that we're going to do that the dog should have some downtime just to be a dog. A lot of dogs are just, it doesn't affect them. They're on campus. It makes them happy. The dogs could go all day, every day, and it doesn't bother them. Whereas there's other dogs that are like, okay, I've had enough petting for today. And I would say that that's probably just some awareness that the owner needs to have. I would say that that's probably not true for dogs that are doing pet therapy visits for ill people, like if they're doing hospital visits or nursing home visits. I think that there's a lot of emotion with illness. So I think that those dogs get worn out a little bit more easily. I also think that when emotions run really high, like when there is trauma and the dogs are going to something that is, when we've had a suicide or with the homecoming tragedy, with something that there's a lot of emotion involved, I think the dogs end up giving more of themselves in those situations and probably need to have more downtime. So versus, hey, this is happy, it's new student orientation, and I am just happy to see the dog, versus I've just lost a good friend of mine and I'm really sad and I'm really anxious and I'm really stressed. That's a different energy. So I think that the dogs can tell, of course, the difference in energies, because you can even tell their personalities. Like if you're going to video the dogs coming up to happy-go-lucky people versus dogs coming near someone who's anxious or stressed, I think their behavior and persona changes. But I do think that it pulls more energy from them. So the owners really do have to be aware. And most owners will tell you, if you talk with owners, they can say, well, one day off in between is usually what my dog needs. Some people will say, they on the weekends they just, are couch potatoes because they give so much of themselves during the week. But I also want to remind them that the dog still has to be a dog. Like, that's what makes them great, is that they actually don't have to deal with all the crosses that we bear. But they should still be a dog. Like, they should go run and play and chase the ball and kind of rebuild their energy stores, which seem to be limitless sometimes, but I always want dogs to have time off. Just because they can doesn't mean that they should. Like, just because they can work every day and give of themselves every day doesn't mean they should do that. They should get downtime too. So I think that finding that balance is really important. And remembering they're a dog. Like, they're, just like a little kid. They need to go out and do recess and have playground time and, watch some mindless television. I mean, that's like they just need, and sometimes they just need just individual owner time. I think that they, if they are paying attention to all these other people, they're not bonding with the person who butters their bread every day. Like, like, you should just be like hanging out with your person and your family. So I do think we do have that conversation a lot, and I bring it up whenever I see my clients with their dogs. My question is, how are things going on campus? Any issues that have come up? Are they having any behavior problems? Do you think that they're more tired? Do you find that they're getting less receptive to interaction? And I would say that people recognize the issues and they have to retire dogs at times. And there are times where we feel, okay, it's time to retire them because their mobility is an issue, or, they get to be just like us. They get older and less patient and want to have more downtime, or maybe they're not enjoying themselves as much. I mean, it's really important to be aware of those and to encourage pet owners to consider it, because they want to be part of the program. So when someone is not part of the program, that's also a huge loss for them. So that it's part of who they are. It's part of their how would you say, it's part of what they do every day. It's part of who you are. Like, I'm a mom, I'm a veterinarian, I'm a grandma. These are my things. I'm a member of Pet Posse. So when you lose that, it really can be, there can be a grief period, I imagine, because that person's also lost their interaction with everybody else. So yeah, so it's so the loss of their role. If they lose their dog, or if they retire their dog and then they're no longer in the program, I mean, that's a big consideration. And I've had a lot of discussions because that they don't know what to do.
Do they get another one?
Do they get another dog? Do they put that dog in the program? And it's because because they love what they're doing and they feel so much gratification from it. They feel like they're making a difference in someone's life. And to lose that is really hard. So when I don't think people really consider that. Like, I'm totally aware that we are going to lose dogs at the end of their natural life. That's going to happen. And I know that we're going to have to retire dogs. But I don't think a lot of people consider that the person is going to have a grief period too, just because they're losing the group that they're been a part of for a potentially very long time.
To figure out another way to be involved.
Yeah, it's probably because it's like changing your resume. It's like me saying
rough rider have a
Yeah, like I'm a retired Rough Rider, and I need to be part of the group. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really big consideration. But there are a lot of volunteer opportunities for ex officio P3 people. So we want to keep them involved.
Well, over the years, how have they measured its success to know whether or not to just keep going or to stop? Has there been something like a rubric or whatever that?
Well, I think the big thing is that right now it's been touches. I think that's the big thing. Like,
okay.
How many touches have you had? Like the dogs, how many people have they come in contact with? You know, the 100,000 touches, just numbers like that. They also have done, they've added it to the student survey to find out how students view the program. We started, a few years ago, we started a P3 research group. It was a combination of Tulsa campus and OSU campus. And things just did not work out the way that I had hoped it would work out. I think that the idea of being in the group was important for everybody, but then getting things done just seemed to be a barrier for everyone. And then we actually got a group together and we started moving forward, and then COVID happened. We were getting ready to launch a research project, and then COVID. And so now 3 years later, because literally that's what you're like, 3 years later, we've had one of our P3 dogs, Ryan, and his dog Benny. He has taken over. He's an analytics guy, which I love. So he's taken over the P3 research group, and he is going to do some amazing things. We had talked before COVID about doing surveys for students after they've come in contact with the dog. So kind of how did you feel before? How do you feel after? How does it connect you to the community? Do you feel that, you have the ability to talk with more people? How has it impacted you? Kind of that type of research, the quantitative and qualitative. And Dr. Chung's going to do an amazing job with that. So I was kind of happy that got moved off of my plate. I was apparently not the best at getting people to follow through on their tasks because I'm just too nice. I just ask, and I don't think that's how you need to do it. You need to have the firm hand, of which I have to be a firm hand to all of my students. I always have to be the bad guy and make sure they're doing stuff on time. And so it's harder to do that with other professors. So yeah, my attempt at research and outcome measures was a complete and utter failure. But that's okay, because I have somebody else who was excited to take it on. So he's going to do something amazing. And then once that happens, once we start to get some outcome measures, I think it'll be an even bigger program. And I think that we'll even get more funding to help it progress to what it really could be. I mean, the sky's the limit. No one's ever done this before, so there's not any ceiling that's keeping us from expanding even more. And never in my wildest dreams have I ever thought that we'd have brick and mortar. And I know that would be great to have a whole center, not just for people, but for the dogs, so they can have their own downtime and people can go. They don't have to go home to let their dog, be off leash and get some relaxation time. So
I'm thinking of reboot. You can have a re-woof.
Yeah, like the reboot center, the re-woof center. Yeah, that's what the dogs need to have downtime. So they need to, people just have a ball thrown to them, and, they need to fetch. And also, sometimes just not having hands on you goes a long way. So they need to have their space. the pet owner can also have some downtime as well.
So all over this course of this 10 years, we've got a manual more or less now of how best.
It was a couple of pages.
how best to do this. It's a model for other
It is a
campuses
model, yeah.
if they wanted. Have you been asked to come explain, or have you shared your
There have
experiences
been.
with this?
I've not shared my experience very much. I'll be honest, because I'm not the program standards person. That's more of Kendria and the advisory board's role. I have done some discussions to veterinary groups as to what we do and how we support the program. And hopefully as it grows more and we maybe rebuild our dogs within the veterinary college, because we only currently have 2. And we also have a new veterinary counselor. It would be great to work with them to build a kind of a more closer knit community within the veterinary college and the dogs. And we can do some outcome measures and then be able to bring that to the other veterinary colleges. It has been presented. We've talked about it. Everybody knows about it in the veterinary realm because we chat about it. But yeah, it's probably something I should do. Thank you for giving me another to-do list.
I know that I have read it's the largest one in the country. This particular type of program.
It is well, there are other dog therapy programs, but ours is not reactive, which I love. Like a lot of times when something happens on campus and people bring therapy dogs in, we already have them here. They're already at the ready.
So 10 years from now, what do you envision? Can you think that far ahead for?
Well, in 10 years at my retirement party, we can have the dogs.
20 years from now.
We can have the dogs visit with me. No, I'm teasing. In 10 years, I really see us having true brick and mortar, a place for students to come and interact with the dogs, and maybe have a counseling program within the pet therapy. So the students that want to have counselors that have ready access to the dogs, like that's what I would love to see, that the dogs are already there. I would love to see in addition to brick and mortar, just more dogs on each campus, as we build campuses and make a bigger footprint throughout the state of Oklahoma, having the dogs be in more remote areas. We have a lot of different colleges throughout Oklahoma. There's not a reason why we can't expand to those programs. It does present a little bit of expanding onto Tulsa, and the Center for Health Sciences was our first step. And Dr. Shrum, of course, had one of the first P3 dogs, Deuce. So she was really instrumental in getting the Tulsa Center for Health Sciences on board. And of course, I know she's really supportive of the program here on the Stillwater campus. But then, moving to the new medical college, and then we just started with Oklahoma City. So as we build our satellite campuses, and they find their own success, then once you get them going and moving forward, then we can build in other areas and just kind of spread throughout the state. That's, brick and mortar is great because it's, it really just gives you that foundation where everyone can come and everyone can see it. It's a true visual, but then just having the reach be wider. I mean, I'd love to see dogs throughout all of our sister campuses. That would be I think that would be really cool. I think it would be a testament to the power of passion for therapy. I think it would be cool.
I didn't realize that Dr. Shrum had the first one over there. So that's
Yes, Deuce Shrum. He was a yellow lab, and he was so cool. He was just a neat dog, and he laid in her office. And yeah, you should talk to Dr. Shrum. She brought him here a lot for veterinary stuff, but he had just an old soul. He was just a really neat dog, and he's since passed, but just a neat dog, loved by everybody. And not only that is, bringing it to a medical school, because that again is also, a lot of students high risk because it's very stressful. And changing attitudes, because a lot of times, there are different nationalities. It's an international school. We have lots of different cultural beliefs, we have lots of different religious beliefs. So, when you're bringing lots of thought processes together, seeing how you can open doors with the dog. And, I know a lot of people that would never even have considered petting a dog, let alone having a dog. And then all of a sudden, this program, they're like, oh yeah, hey, you know what? I don't really like dogs. Oh, wait, now I do. And then I have a dog, and you're like, oh, that's kind of an interesting evolution of your life. But having the dogs on the Center for Health Sciences campus was really a cool, fairly strategic way to go to help decrease the med student stress. The Tulsa campus, because it's an adult education, really, it's an evening campus, so that looks very different than the Center for Health Sciences, which looks different than Stillwater. And Oklahoma City, which just got their first 2 dogs, they're going through training. I mean, that looks very different than all of them. So for each, and then Okmulgee with Tahlequah with their medical school, that looks different too. So the program, as its foundation, is in Stillwater, and the standards are set here. But each program has had to be transitioned to meet the needs of each of their individual campuses, which I would say is a testament to having good foundation. So when you have a good foundation, you can build any house. We're not built on sand here. So first, we built on red clay. We're built on this 10 years of the program being on campus, I think, has set a very solid foundation in order for us to then be able to move it to different campuses that can all come back to the basics. And even if something happens or something changes, you can always go back to the foundation and say, okay, what does this look like? How can we make it happen? What have we learned in the past? Because we've learned a lot. There have been, I would say there have been a lot of hiccups. But we've learned from all of our mistakes and all of our missteps, and from all of the expertise of the people who have crossed our paths, and then how to take that information onto another campus is priceless, because you have 10 years of knowledge, and I don't know how many hundreds of people have had an impact along the way. I mean, I can think of my 2 handfuls of people that I feel that have been the most impactful, that from my perspective, but it's not just 1 or 2, it's handfuls of people. Like these people, without these people, this would never have happened. And without these people, this never would have happened. So I think that's in 10 years, I see not just brick and mortar, I see that our foundation is even more solid, and I see us spidering throughout the state. Because I think the state of Oklahoma, and us being a land grant college, it's our mission is to bring it to our sister campuses. I mean, certainly we're not going to take it to OU. I mean, that would be blasphemy, but we got a lot of OSU sister colleges. And I'm keep kidding. I didn't go here, so I don't have that same rivalry. But there are a lot of other places where the program can benefit people.
Sure. And I'm thinking at some point Kendria will retire, so they'll have to. Something has to be written.
Oh my gosh, that's scary. It's true, and that's a big question, because it's not one person, and that is why I now that it is a nonprofit center for pet therapy, it's no longer just a handful of people. It's bigger than that, and so it's also one of the reasons why I've been trying to step back and let other people move into the roles, because I don't want it to be just a me thing. When it was just myself and Dr. DeMars, who is my partner in clinics and teaching, it's one thing when it was just me. But now I have 6 doctors on our primary care rotations, and there's not a reason that when they're young in their career that they shouldn't be finding outreach and getting involved. So, because eventually I will retire, and eventually Kendria will retire, and you want to have the program standards set so everybody, and then you also, the downside of when you retire is that you take your institutional memory with you.
Yes.
But always having your emeriti alumni, your emeritus faculty and your alumni being there as a resource to say, oh, you don't want to do that. We've done that before. You don't remember this, but back in my day, I can't wait to say that. Back in my day, when I walked uphill both ways to school, we did this mistake, and you shouldn't do that again. Because that seems to happen a lot with any institution, that everybody makes the same mistake and then they don't write it down, and then the next group of people do the same thing.
So are these hiccups written down anywhere?
The hiccups are written down, and I'm sure we could probably pull the email stream of, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. I think that would be the title. That's what we should put the hiccups in. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. There are a lot of hiccups. We have minutes from all of the meetings, but the thing is you'd have to go through and read all those minutes. But
so what is one that comes to mind? A big hiccup.
Oh, big hiccup.
Or a funny hiccup, whatever.
Oh gosh, if you hadn't asked me, I'm going to come up with one. What hiccup can I think of? Well, I can think of hiccups that are probably like the way that we didn't originally evaluate the owners. Like they didn't go through any process as the human disposition. Yeah, there were some personalities
I can see
that were very difficult to manage. And as a veterinarian, I'm not a human psychologist by any stretch of the imagination, but I'll be honest, you get into a veterinary exam room, true serum seems to happen. I don't know what. So maybe because you're wearing a white coat, people tell you everything. So, I find out a lot in the exam room, and you're like, well, this is a little bit of a red flag for me, but then everyone's like, oh, no, they're great. I'm like, well, that's maybe, you might want to just avoid this situation, and then it happens, and you really want to say, I told you so, but the I told you so is a negative because that the program has been impacted. So we've had a couple of those things happen. We've had a couple of very high maintenance people, like P3 people in the program. And the problem with that is that we didn't, for a long time, have a structure of worker bees. I mean, we basically had Kendria and Connie Pirtle and myself, and then we had the advisory board, but they're just working in an advisory board capacity. They're not really doing so. Then you Like you have all of these things happening, and we didn't have the people bandwidth to manage it all. So that would probably be the other hiccup, is not having any staff. Like we weren't funded by anybody, so who's going to pay them? I mean, at the beginning, this was all volunteer. This was all after hours work. This was Kendria, and she did her job all day long, and then did P3 stuff when she wasn't doing her job. And Connie was volunteering, and I was doing my job, and then all my extra stuff after hours. So, I mean, the thing is that there wasn't a staff, and there still isn't a big staff. I mean, it's Kendria and her assistant, who's just part-time. So when you're dealing with a bunch of volunteers, that's a tough way to run any type of program. So I would say that at 10 years, and then hopefully with more staff, that a lot of people can just exhale. Whew, okay, now I can hand some of this stuff off to other people. Having a media presence is really hard. Social media is tough to keep up with.
Yes.
And so Kendria was doing all of that all on her own. And, that's a lot of work for one person. So it's, I think it's been a huge labor of love for a small group of people that kind of done the heavy lifting through the years. And now as more and more people start doing some of the lifting, I think it makes it a lot easier. So in the future, it'd be great to have more funding and then therefore more staff.
Sure. The labor of love, given love too, from the
that's right,
all the way around.
Yeah, what happens is the labor of love has to go home and get their own pet therapy. Like I just go home and but my poor dogs, I'm a veterinarian, I go home and I've been around everybody's pets all day, and my dogs just really want to see me, and I'm just like, oh, hi. And then they realize I've been cheating on them all day because they smell everybody else's pets, and I'm like, well, no, I've just been cheating on you because but they do love my shoes, and they're always like, where have you been today? Who have you cheated on with us?
Well, we've covered a lot. Is there anything that I don't know that I should be asking? That just something I just hadn't thought to ask?
I don't think so. I think that's pretty much it. I know that there are a lot of people that you're interviewing, but I really, honestly, I would say that my biggest thing is to give shout outs to, Patricia Henthrone's family, and they, because of her gift, P3 never would have happened from my role on our side of the aisle, would never have happened. So I give her so much credit. I am so grateful to Connie Pirtle for being a loving client who just stepped up to help with, just because she was my friend and she took on a role that I was immense. And Vicki Cups, who is another client, she's in Tulsa, for giving us as much of her wise counsel. Without those people, I know that I wouldn't be where I am today with the program, and I know that we wouldn't have been as successful. So there are always a lot of people that you forget to thank along the way. But really, I would say that there is nothing that I have accomplished at this university had it not been for my professorship. And there are a lot of people who are not blessed or honored with that role, and I just give it all up to her and her love of dogs. And I think that, when the foundation always asks, like, what have you done with this donation? What have you done? And I really think that the P3 footprint is just a testament to what one person who didn't even know me, who donated money, what that gift has accomplished. So I've never met her family. But I can't thank them enough. I really can't. So those are the only big things that I wanted to say. It would be it's the unsung heroes in my life that have really made all the difference. And of course, all my wonderful clients who agreed to be in the first program.
And the four-legged furry friends.
And the four-legged furry friends, especially the rescue dogs that we hid throughout our hospital until we got funding. And then we got funding for disaster relief. So then there were funds available. But poor Evie and her moving suites. I was like, well, today you're going to be in Ward C, and no one will know that you're here. And tomorrow you'll be in Ward A. She was a good dog. We've lost her too. She passed away last year, but she was a great dog. And when you look at I look at the picture of the first picture that they did of the dogs at Christmas time. They did the first Christmas card, and Scruff was still wearing his external scowl fixator, and Evie couldn't be in the picture because of the flashes. Because after the storm that she survived, she was afraid of lightning. So we had to Photoshop her in because they couldn't get a picture with her because everyone is there, and no Evie because she was like hightailing it out of there. And poor Charlie, when he did TED Talks, they had this big band that was playing, and then he became terrified of noise. Like, there are all of these things that happen that you just giggle about because you're like, well, we never would have thought that would happen. But, it's all those people that were willing and trusting in the beginning, that small group of people that started it. Probably have some great stories. I don't know if you're even talking to the first 8.
Yeah, we need to, I think.
That would be fun.
We need to, for sure.
That would be fun. Talk to the original 8 and see what they have to say. I'm sure their version of events is very different. Their perception is probably very different.
So did they do Christmas cards every year or just that first year?
Just that first year. I think they did it maybe the first and second year, but then the group just got too big, and now we just do the class pictures
and then photos at
Baccalaureate. Yeah, they do their class picture and then Baccalaureate, and then they get their trading cards.
I bet the photographer may have some stories to tell too.
Oh, I'm sure. There are always really good stories, and I never hear about them because I'm always like the person running around trying to take care of all the dogs and all the things that are not under my control. Like, because I'm always trying to get them under my control, but they never are.
Yeah, I've heard someone say during the training or during the test, I don't know at what point, but you try to agitate them to see how much it takes or how much they will take.
That's during their test, yeah. Because we have to make the therapy dog testing, and that is, there are testers. We have a couple of our P3 owners who are testers as well. But Vicky Cups was that first person. What she would do is she'd have a cane and a walker and a blind person's cane, and she would drop it on the ground, or she would use crutches. And because the thing is you try to think of all these random events that can happen that may set the dog off. So at least like ahead of time. Well, they're afraid of a walker. They're afraid of crutches. They're afraid of other dogs. So she would bring her dog, Dozer, big, huge Samoyed, beautiful dog, and he would hang out, and then she would introduce Doe, because he was super laid back, introduce that dog to have Dozer in the room to see how that dog reacted, and have to see how the dog does away from the owner. You have to be able to leave the dog for 2 minutes, so they can't be anxious. You have to be able to give them to another person for 2 minutes in order to pass the test. So there's a lot of nuances to the test that I didn't know about. Vicky helped me learn all of that stuff because she was our original tester, and she gave so much insight. She would be a great person to talk to because she just has such a depth of experience with therapy dogs in general. But she was one of our first trainers. She was our first tester. She took care of Tulsa for a number of years for all their training. So I'm sure she's got a lot of great P3 stories that I don't know anything about. Most of the time, I'm the last person to know. I hear about it last. I'm like, really? That happened? And yeah, but there's a lot of really cool people that have crossed the P3 path and have really made some significant impacts. So,
including yourself.
Oh no, I've just been the vet. I mean, I'm just the vet. I just have fun with it. I'm just glad the students put their phones down. I mean, for goodness sake, use your eyes and your mouth. I always tell the students, in fact, I always tell them, I'm like, use your words. Just tell me what you need. Just say what you want or what you need, because I can usually be pretty impactful if you're using words. I cannot read your minds. I don't even want to read your minds. But the students laugh about that. And they're like, well, can we just text you? I'm like, no, use words. I mean, we're in a patient-facing profession. So you don't go into an exam room and want your doctor to be on their phone the whole time. And I hate it when I go into my doctor's office and he's on the computer putting in the medical record. Yeah. So he knows how much I hate that. He would never, because I would be like, hey, I'm over here, friend. So we're patient-facing, and that actually the key word is facing. So I really love it when the students put down their guard, engage with other people, get outside of themselves, and recognize that their small world is so much bigger. They just give themselves the opportunity. You never know who you're going to meet. I mean, you just never, ever know who you're going to cross paths with, and just how amazing that person might be, or how instrumental they may be in your life. I mean, I can't even imagine when I look at the people that have crossed paths just with the P3 program. I just can't even believe how much it's changed my life. It's for the better. I don't have any negatives to say about it. Not even one.
I guess that's a good way to end this then, isn't it?
Yeah, not even one. Until I think of one. No, it's not even one. The people, and just as to reiterate, I think that everyone's wanted to do everything for the good of the program, which I don't think I've ever experienced that in my life. There's always a naysayer. There's always a, person who's got a negative outlook on it. And I would say that the people that have had, not that they're not naysayers, but who have had questions or have had concerns, have always brought up questions that would positively then impact the program. Because then they ask a really pointed question, and you're like, oh, I hadn't even thought about it, because you looked at it from this perspective and I'm coming at it from this perspective. So it's not that they're naysayers, it's just that they're asking a really specific question, and you're like, oh, never even thought about it. So I don't know, it's been a great experience. I have no complaints. It's really, my career and my professional life have all been blessed by it, and I'm grateful to Ann and Kendria for involving me.
And they're thankful for you coming to OSU to begin with.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I'm a blessing and a curse to many people, Tanya.
I doubt that.
Oh, I'm sure my son would say that I can be a curse. But yeah, I guess
I think it's been a good fit for you to be here at this institution, don't you? I mean,
I think it's been a great fit.
Great fit.
Yeah, and in fact, there have been times where I've thought about leaving. Everyone, you always get other opportunities that come up, and I've thought about it, but the P3 program was one of the reasons why I chose not to leave.
Okay.
Because I'm their vet. I'm very very committed to them, and I'm very very married to my patients. I want it to be successful. So I always thought to myself, well, who would take over the program from my perspective? Who would take over my part if I left? And there wasn't a viable option. So it's, kept me here. Plus, I'm kind of a big fan of it.
Power of the pup.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Kendria is rubbed off on everybody.
I mean, I'm a dog person too, so, or animal in general.
Powered by pups. I like that. Puppy power.
All right, then I'll say thank you very much
You're
for
welcome.
sharing today's video.
Thank you for including me. I appreciate it.
You're quite welcome.
Awesome.